How comfortable are you in your own skin right now? How comfortable are you in your own skin? How comfortable are you with yourself? There's a lot that I think you can take from this. I know I took a bunch from it, took a bunch of notes. So maybe this is a more selfish one for me, right? But I figure you might be able to get something out of it. The first thing that that lady said was, "How do we get out of our own way? How do I get out of my own way?" I don't know if any of you ever feel that way, right? That you're kind of in your own way. Nothing's really stopping you. It's just your own self, your own limiting beliefs, your own emotions, your own attitudes. Like it's just you. It's just me, right? It's just so how do we get out of our own way? I think that's a great place to start and just start to ponder. Like because there's actually nothing holding us back from getting to the life that we want. Hope we all understand that. Like that there's countless amounts, countless amounts of stories that people that went from rags to riches, right? Like the old, I was homeless and now I'm a multimillionaire. Like I was right in the worst situation possible and then I excelled. There's countless stories of those, right? So it really doesn't matter where we are currently. The question is, right, what's holding us back from getting to where we want to go? And I think what you heard in that interaction, and I dropped the link in there if anybody wants to watch it again. What that interaction was us and her learning how to identify some thoughts that potentially weren't serving her. So sometimes when you guys hear us jump on these calls and we start talking about growth, and I'm big on it, right? Growing and pursuing and getting to your ideal life and becoming better and all those things. And Tony Robbins asked a basic question. He kind of switched the question. He was like, well, what if your focus wasn't on growth? What if your focus was on like excitement or enjoyment? So what do I always tell you? If you change your thinking, will change your life. Like if you change how you think about something, the outcome of what you get will change. This is an example where she believed she was doing something good, right? Like I'm growing. I'm living life because I want to grow, I want to experience. And she was struggling with, well, how do I also stay in the place of acceptance? Of knowing I want to grow and knowing I am growing, but also accepting kind of where I am. And if, again, I'm big on listening to words. If in the beginning, she actually pointed it at someone else and said, like, how do I accept people when they're not on the same growth journey or they're not growing in the same ways? And I had to realize that that's not everyone's journey. But really, she was just talking about herself, right? Like, how do I accept myself when I right feel like I'm not growing in the ways that I want to? And I think that was one of the unlocks for her. And that can be an unlock for you. That can be an unlock for us, right? Of just thinking the thing that we maybe are wanting the most, maybe that is the thing that could be holding us back mentally. At the end of that, Tony Robbins talked about, right, a life of ease, right? Like where you're good with yourself, you're comfortable with yourself. That's ultimate self-acceptance. That's ultimate growth because you are growing in your experiences, in your enjoyment, and the other emotions that you give yourself the permission to feel. Sometimes we don't give ourselves the permission to feel all of the other emotions in life, and we kind of stick in this routine of emotions, of shame and guilt and doubt, and a little dopamine hit here and there, and a little worry here and there. Like we give ourselves the same thing. So, how do we shift that thinking? How do we shift that thing? It starts, I wrote down, ask yourself better questions. He asked her one question that shifted the entire thing. We were talking about growth, and then he said, what if your focus wasn't growth? What if it was enjoyment, or what if it was excitement, whatever he said? That made her think. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, a question opens the mind, a statement closes the mind. If you tell yourself about yourself or tell yourself about someone in a statement, your mind closes. It does not go to searching to figure out a solution. You figured it out. You've made a definitive, this is what it is. But when we ask ourselves good questions, when we ask ourselves a question, our brain opens up. So sometimes we need coaches like a Tony Robbins or mentors to ask you a question. This is what therapy does. Like if you ask yourself a question, it'll help you change the way you're thinking about that thing, and it'll get you a different outcome if you change it. And that's what we were watching in that process. Ask a question. I'm so focused on growth, hyper growth. How do I get out of my way? Well, what if you shouldn't be focused on growth? What if you should be focused on something else? He gave the example of his daughter. It's like, my daughter's not focused on growth. She's just living her life and enjoying it and having fun. And she is growing, right? Like she's growing mentally, physically, spiritually, all of it. Like she's growing, but she's not focused on it. And you could see in the video, right? A little light bulb went off, like, oh, got it, right? That makes sense. She said, touche, got it. She changed the way she thought about growth, and now potentially her life can change. Potentially she can experience some things she's never experienced before. It's that simple interaction. That was an 8-minute video. I don't know if it was time lapse or right, they chopped it up or whatever the case is, but like that was 8 minutes for her to get a breakthrough of like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't focus on growth as much. Maybe if I just focus on like loving my life, I will grow by proxy. The more questions you ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, the better off you become, right? I think Tony Robbins, that's a Tony Robbins quote, right? The quality of our life comes down to the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. The quality of our life comes down to the quality of the questions that we're asking ourselves. And a lot of times we're just not asking ourselves enough questions. We're just not asking ourselves enough questions. I found this in our text, 177 Mental Toughness Secrets. I think it goes a bit with what it is that we were talking about, because towards the end of that, she talked about her growth being something that she was striving for because maybe she didn't feel like she was enough, right? Or Tony said that about it, right? Like it's a feeling of not being enough, right? Not having that self-acceptance. So now you have this compulsion, you have this, right, kind of tension to do something that now is no longer in your heart. It's really just in your head, right? Because you've kind of created that because maybe you didn't believe you were enough. You didn't believe like you could achieve it, whatever the case is. In 177 Mental Toughness Secrets, it says champions evolve from proving themselves to expressing themselves. It was very similar to kind of what we were just talking about, right? Proving yourself to yourself or to someone or to your family, like proving yourself is one side, and we'll read it in here, ego-driven. And eventually we have to get to just expressing ourselves, the highest, grandest vision of yourself, expressing it to the world, expressing it to yourself. Self-acceptance, kind of what Tony was talking about. So here's what it says in here. It says amateur performers are driven by a need to prove themselves to themselves and other people. This need can easily become an addiction for a person who craves acceptance and validation from the outside world. Professional performers evolve to a higher level of consciousness where outside approval is no longer necessary. Champions still enjoy the accolades and acceptance of people they respect, but are no longer motivated to take action to achieve this acceptance. The great ones are often motivated through self-expression by the need to share their unique talents and abilities with the world. Abraham Maslow said, the father of humanistic psychology, said it this way: in order for a human being to reach self-actualization, they must become all they can be. The writer must write, the painter must paint, the salesperson must sell. The world class doesn't do these things to please other people, gain notoriety, or get rich. They do it because it expresses who they are to themselves. In essence, champions learn who they are in an act of self-expression and often choose to share themselves with the world. The act of proving oneself is based in ego and rooted in fear of not being good enough. Can we just talk about that? That's basically what Tony was saying. The act of proving oneself to themselves or to others is based in ego and rooted in the fear of not being good enough. The act of expressing oneself is based in spirit and rooted in love of wanting to share and celebrate a person, is uniqueness and inner beauty. Proving oneself is a process that must be forced onto others because of the attachment the performer has to the outcome. Expressing oneself is a natural process that has no attachment to anything or anyone. The more praise they get, the more they need to feel good about themselves. Expressing oneself creates feelings of fulfillment in the act itself, regardless of any outcome. It's one of the reasons the great ones are more mentally tough than their amateur counterparts. So how do we go from this proving ourselves to ourselves. I know I can prove this person wrong, whatever the case is, relatively ego based. And like it says here, rooted in the fear of not being good enough. If you're proving yourself, there's something inside of us that says, I'm not accepted as I am. I have to keep proving myself. I have to keep proving myself that I'm better or that I'm worthy or that, right, I can make money or that I'm a good parent or whatever it is. That is a root cause of how we start to get on this journey of I gotta grow, I gotta learn, I gotta be better, I gotta get right. And again, I'm speaking to myself, right? Like I'm the one preaching a lot of this stuff because I believe it's true. But again, what Tony talked about in there is there's a balance, there's a tension to this. Yes, yes, we're growing. Yes, we're learning. And yes, we can do it at a faster pace. Yes, we can consume better things. Yes, we can change our habits. Absolutely. But we also have to give ourselves grace, give ourselves compassion, love ourselves, learn how to go from proving to expression, expressing exactly who you are, why you are the way you are, and being unapologetic about these things, because that's how you create this life where you can go off and design anything you want, be who you want, experience what you want. And through that comes growth. And through that comes growth. So at the end of the day, if we're not working on ourselves, if we're not working on these parts of ourselves that, again, we might not have discovered, we might not have really gotten to the root of some of these issues. I hope calls like today, like these things, get you to say, okay, let me ask myself some better questions. Let me get to the root of some things. Let me get around some good people, right? Let me talk to some people about some of these things and what they're experiencing and what I'm experiencing. But ultimately, I got to get away from just striving to prove myself, to prove these things to myself or to others. Just got to express myself. I got to create a life where I can be me, right? Where you can be you, where you can just continue to live life in the way that you want it. And know that that's rooted in love and wanting to share more of yourself with another person, knowing that you add value, knowing that you can serve somebody, knowing that you can change someone's life, knowing that a word from you might be the thing that they needed that day to get them through. Who knows? Who knows? But that's our job. Us on this call, we want to grow. We want to be champions. You want to get your ideal life. You want to start to experience things that maybe you haven't experienced before. These are some little things that we have to start paying attention to. We have to start paying attention to asking ourselves better questions. What if you're focused on the wrong thing? We talk about focus a lot on these calls. Whatever you're focused on, you get more of, ideally. But as we heard today, Tony Robbins said, hey, sometimes the thing that you focus on the most could be the thing that holds you back from getting to where you want to go. So maybe we have to change our thinking. We have to change our thinking, our thought process to get a different outcome, to change our life, to change what we're experiencing. And that takes work. It takes work, y'all. It takes you taking 30 minutes in the morning. It takes you taking an hour at night. It takes you sitting with yourself, not being distracted, not having the phone, not being on social media, not being with your family, not at the job, not constantly talking to somebody, like sitting with yourself and asking yourself some good questions, asking yourself some things that, what am I really focused on? Metacognition. It says it in this book, metacognition. Are we thinking about what we're thinking about? Like, do you think about what you're thinking about? I hope you do. I feel like that was something I just saw this morning. I'm always getting inspiration somewhere, right? I hope you are too, right? I copied this from Twitter, from X. It said, when your day runs on a program, you've lost your free will to control your mind. The program is full of memorized sets of behaviors, fixed attitudes, unconscious habits, a set of beliefs and perceptions, and emotional reactions. Programs hypnotize you. So the more, like, how much are we in a program? How much are you in an emotional program where you feel the same things every day, where you experience the same things every day? where there's no variety. This is something Tony just talked about in the video. Variety also brings growth. Variety, changing things. You can change subtle things in your day. I hope you know this. I do this every once in a while. If you have to drive somewhere, like you have to drive to work, you have a routine to drive to work, take a different route. There's probably 2 or 3 routes that get you there. If you have to take like a highway or something, get off a stop early or an exit later and take a different route. That bit of variety changes some programming. We don't understand that, like you've all done it. You've all driven somewhere and gotten there and kind of forgot the ride, right? You kind of forgot like how you got there. You kind of forgot like all the stuff you were thinking about. And it's like muscle memory. That's how our lives operate. Like that's a driving example, but like your morning routine is a habit. It's whatever you've conditioned yourself to do. Your night routine is a habit. It's a program. It's something you've conditioned yourself to do. What you feel when something happens is a program. You can change your emotional response. Someone could hit your car and you could start laughing. You could, right? That's not our natural emotional response. For some people, it is, right? If they're too emotional to cry, some people laugh, they go the other way, right? But you get what I'm saying? Like you can, whatever it is, it's a program. So what we saw today in the video is she was programming her mind or unprogramming it from a program she had just given to it that had treated her well, that had caused her to travel to 50 countries and live in 8 countries. That's what she said, or 13 countries, or whatever she said. Yeah, she had some growth. She experienced some life. And now she wants to go to the next level. There's a book that says, what got you here won't get you there. What got you here won't get you there. And so now we need to reprogram, unlearn and relearn some new things to take us to the next level of life, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what I'm going to submit to you on this Wednesday that we need to start doing. We need to start paying attention to some of these thought processes, some of these things that we've held on to that have gotten us this far, which is great. Compassion, self-acceptance, it's gotten you this far. It will not get you to where you want to be. And we have to change our thinking in some of these areas. Steve Seabolt's quote here says, the ego-driven middle class and upper class are out to prove themselves. The spirit-driven world class wishes only to express themselves. One struggles against the current while the other floats peacefully down the river. Ease. That's what Tony Robbins said. This is about ease. How comfortable are you being in your own skin? How comfortable are you living a life where internally you have ease, you have peace? That's what we're working towards. That's what we're working towards. The action step for today says, ask this critical question, critical thinking question. Are you out to prove yourself or express yourself? What are you operating out of? You still trying to prove yourself to people? You still trying to prove yourself to your coworkers, to your boss, to your spouse, to your kids? Still trying to prove yourself to God? Like who are you trying to prove yourself to? Are you still in that position? Or are you focused on expressing? You know what you have. You know who you are. You know what you embody. You know your values. You know your character. You know what you're here to give to the world. You're just working on it and growing by expressing who you are. We got a little work to get there. Speaking to myself, right? Got a little work to get there, but it's okay. We're going to get there. That's right, Rob. We're going to get there. I love you guys. I want you to win. You deserve to win. Your families deserve to win. These are the messages we need to hear and then implement in our life, right? Take this information and now apply it. Remember, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So once you have knowledge, you have to apply the knowledge. If you don't apply it, nothing happens, right? So apply what you heard today. Apply what you heard today on this Wednesday. Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Ask yourself some better questions. Shift that focus a bit so you can go to expressing yourself instead of proving yourself, and watch your life take off, because it's too crowded down here at the bottom, y'all. It's time to get to the top of this thing. I love y'all. Enjoy your Wednesday. We'll be right back here on Friday for another one. Take care. Have a great day.